What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Nerdwide podcast. This is episode 117. We're going to talk about Extraction 2. We're going to talk about all of the Superman and Lois and Gotham Knights news that just came out this week. No new episodes of the shows to talk about, although we had a suspicion this news was coming this week because of something we talked about last episode. But quick housekeeping before we jump into all of it. I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've waited for Extraction 2 for a very long time, but we also have a whole slew of news to talk about that we've been kind of building up just for one of these episodes when we're down some TV shows. But this is episode 117 of the Nerdwide podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Haynes, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Chris Rivers. Now, Chris, this is a Saturday. We're used to recording on Sundays, but Sunday is Father's Day, and Chris said, hey, you know what? It's Father's Day. Take the day off from recording. Spend some time with your family. Drink some alky, eat some good food, and I appreciate that. But Chris, how has your week been?
Shit, how's yours been?
About the same. It's this new process we've got at work is horrible and just not fun. And I know we were talking earlier, we're both working overtime, and it's just not a fun time right now. It's summertime, it's hot boy summer. We should be out there sitting by poolside and all that stuff, not working. But,
Did a few hours of OT during the week, and then normal hours last night. So got off at 11:30. I cannot go to sleep before 6, 7 in the morning earliest, and had to get up at 9:30. To be back into work today at 11 for Saturday overtime. So, yeah, about to not do that anymore.
Yeah, because that's not okay. No. Human bodies aren't meant to work like that anyways. So I don't understand why these companies think that they can do that. Let's see.
Money.
Yeah, money. It's always comes down to the money. Quick housekeeping before we jump into our fun slew of things, because I really want to pick your brain on a lot of these news stories. I know we've sent articles back and forth throughout the week, but we hadn't really talked about this stuff. But quick housekeeping, right. Don't forget to subscribe to either our YouTube or whatever podcasting service you use. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you leave us a thumbs up on whatever YouTube or whatever podcasting service you use. Make sure you give us a good rating. Good ratings help us get in the algorithm, help us boost us up around the ratings, things like that, and make this show get on to more eyes and more people can see and hear what we're talking about. If you don't enjoy what you see or hear, make sure you leave us a comment down below. Let us know what we can fix. Let us know what's broken. Let us know what you don't like. Things like that. We can't fix anything if we don't know what's broken personally. If you want to do more, you can always go to patreon.com/nerdwide. 3 different tiers for 3 different monthly subscriptions, each one having different things, with the most one, I think being, what did we say, was $7, which you can do...
7 or 10.
7 or 10. It's one of those. And it lets you pick what we watch, what we read, what we play, things like that, and review and recap just for you off of your suggestion. And we would greatly appreciate that. But Chris, TV-wise, have you watched anything different or anything? Have you had any time, actually, to watch anything? Yeah, that's same boat. Nothing crazy TV-wise. We're still going through our Ted Lasso with my oldest daughter. Really enjoying that. Almost done with it. But that's it. And of course, our shows, Gotham Knights, Superman and Lois, not on this week. So we should have 2 straight weeks for them, the penultimate and then their finales. But something that's not going to get their finale, Chris. The first news story here. Rock.
Wait a minute. Oh. Not only are we going to have Superman and Lois.
Yes.
Right? But we're going to have Secret Invasion.
Finally going back to the MCU TV.
Secret Invasion.
Have we had MCU TV this year? Because was Miss Marvel the last one, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so. I think it was that and the Guardians Holiday Special.
Wow, so it's been 6 months since we've had an MCU show. Yeah, because that has to be... Isn't that something? Man, but we're about to get this and then Loki at the end of the year. But that's probably going to be it for a long while because of the writer's strike. Because Daredevil is on pause indefinitely till the writer's strike is over. And then a lot of the movies and stuff is indefinitely on hold as well. But something's on hold forever now. Young Rock has been canceled after 3 seasons. And as someone who's watched every episode, that's a bummer. Didn't really expect it because it was a CBS show and they love their shows. So kind of, it is what it is. But a lot of the kid actors have also growing up, and I'm sure are more expensive now that they are growing up.
I wonder who is it produced by Warner Brothers Television?
I think it's produced by The Rock's Seven. I don't know. Let me see. I know for sure it's his company has a hand in it. Who produces Young Rock?
I'm just curious if with all the flack around Black Adam and him not wanting Zach Levi to make the cameo and all this, if they were just like, you know what, we don't have to keep your show on the air.
Yeah. It just says production companies: Grit and Superstition, $7 Production, Fierce Baby Productions, World Wrestling Entertainment, and Universal Television. So Universal instead of Warner Brothers. So, and that's something. But unfortunately, everybody, that show has been canceled. But we did get some good news this week. Kind of a double-decker of this. But this is one of the things I want to talk to you about. Superman and Lois has been renewed for season 4. Excellent. Yay. Awesome. But for 10 episodes. Okay? Not too bad. Just 3 less than we normally get. Not too bad. But
I have a theory.
But it comes at a cost, though, Chris. It comes at a cost. We're going to tvline.com by Andy Swift, who gets the byline. Superman and Lois Bloodbath. 7 series regulars cut ahead of the renewed season 4. Even Superman himself couldn't stop this. 7 of the Superman and Lois' main cast members will not return for the just ordered 4th season on the CW, our sister site Deadline reports. The 7 cast members who have been cut: Dylan Walsh as General Sam Lane, Emmanuel Cricky as Mayor Lana Lang, Eric Valdez, Lana's ex-husband Kyle Cushing, Inde Navarrete as Sarah Cushing, Wole Parks as John Henry Irons, Taylor Buck as Natalie Irons, and, surprising nobody, Sophia Hasmick as Chrissy Beppo.
Oh, I love how it's surprising nobody.
Oh, that was me. That was my.
Yeah. So,
do you think the cost benefits the renewal?
Yes. Because they are also noting that just because they've been let go as series regulars, they may recur or make guest appearances as those characters. I asked you via text when we were going back and forth about it. Do we think this means that the new season takes place back in Metropolis? That's why they can cut Lana. That's why they can cut Sarah.
They cut that whole family out now.
Yeah. Plus Chrissy, because you're not going to be in Smallville.
Right. No one's running the Gazette anymore. I mean, so everyone's assuming that I think it's been confirmed actually, that Lex Luthor is the main villain for the series for the last season.
And has been made a series regular.
Yes. So that would work. I mean, obviously we're coming off the ramifications on this season of him. So spoiler alert for everyone who hadn't seen the show, of him being falsely imprisoned by Mannheim's and Lois Lane. So we've got those two, but this lets me know the stakes aren't going to be that high because he's still going to come back for next season as a regular. So
right, and it also confuses me because at one point when they were talking about it, they basically came to the conclusion that Lex wanted to be in prison.
Right.
Because he didn't seem to fight it.
Yeah, because he could easily get out anyways.
Yeah.
So it's...
yeah. I wonder if the 10-episode order... Because... Could this be the CW saying, all right, we're going to go ahead and renew it? And then renew it for 10 episodes because the CW, the reason they didn't want to bring it back, they don't have the streaming rights.
Right.
So is it a case of we'll go ahead and renew it while we work out an agreement with Max for them to basically buy it lock, stock, and barrel from us, but then that way everything's already set for a 10 episode run, which would be fairly normal for Max,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll just go there.
I'm curious because this is, we talked about when this season very first started. This is the very first show that the DC Studios has helmed. I mean,
Right.
and you can tell off of this season. Season 3 has truly been one of the best seasons of any Superman and Lois show or Superman show that I've ever seen. And I'm going back and rewatching all of Smallville. But I'm very curious. I mean, I don't think Jonathan's going to get powers now. I think we're just going to keep Jordan with his powers and Jonathan just be a regular guy just like his mom. And which is something we've both wanted for him to get his powers to have that whole dynamic. But maybe we would take the love interest out for everybody. So, I mean, I don't know, but I think we'll probably get 2 or 3 episodes for each of the characters that got cut. Obviously, they'll be in the finale. We don't know if this is the finale season. We just know it got renewed. I imagine though that it could be the final season. I hope not. I hope it goes to Max.
Talking about Jonathan, let me ask you something. If we saw in the last episode, I think it was the last episode, that he's much more calm than Jordan. He's not as emotional. Do you think that's why he hasn't seen his powers come in yet? Because we've seen that Jordan, when he gets very emotional and has that anxiety attack,
right,
that sort of brings about a new power.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, maybe we get something towards the end of the season where he is doing that volunteer firefighting now, where some immense stress happens and it triggers it. I mean, it's a good possibility because we really haven't seen him stressed to the max yet. Well, except for him getting his truck this season, but he also had Natalie and Jonathan there.
Right.
So Jordan there. He hadn't really had any reason to really stress. So
I wonder if we see him, if he's in a situation where he's in a burning structure having to save somebody, maybe unexpectedly, like he's not geared up like he should be, and he ends up on fire and doesn't realize it.
Right.
And he's just like...
He's running through the building and stuff's falling, and he's just kind of pushing off of them too. And
right.
That's a good possibility. I mean,
he comes out, and he's on fire, and Kyle's like, "Kit, you're on fire," and he's just like, "Oh."
Right. Didn't even feel it. Didn't even scratch or anything to see. If it happens though, Chris, we're suing the CW for listening into our show. But good,
even though it's filmed already.
Right, even though it's filmed and done with, But good news, bad news, where our show finally got renewed, but it did come at a cost of losing our 7 regulars. So
now, I do have one more question for you about Superman and Lois. Not that he should, because he definitely earns his check. If you're Tyler Hoechlin, do you call them up and go, "Look, I'll take a little less money if we can, say, keep Dylan Walsh involved with the show."
Right.
Or if we can... Because that's the character probably, if they're taking it out of Smallville, that most surprises me. Because he's also he's been such a part of the family.
Yeah, I mean, he's the grandfather and the dad.
Right.
So I mean, it's weird, and to me, the Cushing family, I understand that part. Those 4, it sucks, but I get that.
And Chrissy, I understand.
And Chrissy, right? But the Irons family, I don't really get that either, because they've only been around since John Henry's been along since the beginning. Since season 1, and then his daughter came in season 2. So I'm like, it's they're all kind of a close knit groups. I just don't understand that, but I don't know how they're gonna play that one off. But I mean, they got plenty of time to think about it, though. But Chris,
unless
yes,
it does take place in Metropolis, and he and Natalie stay behind to protect Smallville.
she just tired of moving around, don't want to move anymore. See, this is my home now. Let's stay here. Yeah. But Chris, there is something that did not find its home, and that is our last TV news to talk about. Gotham Knights has unexpectedly been canceled. Shocking nobody. Let's be honest. We've talked about this all season long. We suspected it last week because Misha Collins on Sunday said that he was going to be taking a week-long meditation hiatus off of social media. So that got me thinking. I was like, he already knows and does not want to be around and focus on his personal health for it, which is fine. But Gotham Knights has been canceled, which lets me know with 2 episodes left, we're going to be stuck with a pretty big cliffhanger at the end.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't see it coming back, though, personally.
Couldn't they have just canceled Turner and not the...
Yeah, and kept Dwella going and Misha Collins going. I mean, even Colin and Stephanie, but you know what? What do we know?
Harper.
I mean,
Carrie. Like literally everybody else.
Yeah, but here we are. Releases this week, Wednesday, June 21st. We return to the MCU TV with Secret Invasion. I imagine they're dropping the first 2 episodes this week. Could be wrong, but all the red carpet events and everything was for the first 2 episodes. I imagine we get 1 and 2 this week.
Yeah, because it's later in the year. It's Echo, right? That they're doing the full.
Oh, that's right, Echo. Yeah,
binge worthy.
Mm-hmm. Because Loki comes out in November, and then December they're just dropping all the Echo episodes, which is we'll see. But you know we are going to cover it, and we might, depends what's going on during that time. We might do 2 episodes a week to stretch it out for content purposes wise, and to not burn ourselves out on our show when just binging it. So you never know, but that's probably what we do. But ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our TV shows. Over to you, Chris.
Well, good night, Tyler.
No, not yet. We got too much to talk about to say good night to these fine folks. Folks.
So, have you watched any other movies other than what we watched this week? We watched 3 things this week.
Yeah, no, I haven't had time I barely had time for our 3 this week.
This was almost 6 hours of content?
Yeah, Iron Man 2 was roughly 2 hours. Extraction 2 was 2 hours and 12 minutes. Yeah. And Stanley documentary was an hour and a half. So I mean, roughly, which is a lot, but we're here for you guys, and we didn't want y'all to miss out on any of this stuff. All right.
Yeah. We had, that's the only reason we watched any of this, right? No, not really. we would have watched it anyway, so we may as well talk about it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
First up, let's do the Stan Lee documentary, because there's a lot that we can talk about. But from a synopsis standpoint, it's not anything that we can really say other than it covers his life and career.
Yeah, I mean, from birth on, with pictures and video, and home videos, and
born in 1922.
Mm-hmm.
It does touch on. It's really cool. Towards the end, you get to hear a interview that he and Jack Kirby, I think it was.
Wasn't that great?
We're doing, where they started to get into it about.
I had no idea that interview existed, because it was on the radio show, and they got heated pretty good.
Yeah. Basically, apparently a few of the people at Marvel over the years, led by Steve Ditko first, who quit, and Jack Kirby included, kind of took, I think, took exception to Stan Lee sort of taking credit for creating these characters. I see what he was saying. Like
I get all
I dreamed
sides.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dreamed it up and came up with the initial concept, and
And
then they're
wrote these
saying,
characters and
right, and they're saying, but he didn't exist till we drew him.
yeah, which is a valid point too. And I mean, it's one of those things. I just don't. This is why it's been such a. There are people that have a big issue with Stan Lee being credited for all these MCU movies and properties and everything like that, and Jack Kirby has just been kind of left in the dirt. But if you notice now, though, well, in all of them, I think actually at the very end of the credits, it says thank you to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby for making this possible. But
Right.
when you think of Marvel, who does everybody think of? So
Lee.
it's just one of those things. But I mean, I get all sides of it, honestly. I really do. So, but it was fun to see how, because a lot of this, us being who we are and ingrained into this lifestyle, these comics and these movies and everything, we already know a lot of it. And I told you before we started recording that there was I love watching these kind of things because I learned something I didn't already know. And which, I've watched a lot of these things and heard him talk at conventions and, and there's stuff I didn't know about. But I really liked this documentary. I liked the way that they did it with they were throwing in pictures from the comics that they used motion graphics on the comics. I like the little still kind of claymation stuff that they did of everything to kind of paint a picture. And then they had, your home movies, your home pictures, and interview pictures and videos and stuff like that. It's just very, very cool. And the MCU maybe got 15 minutes, 10 minutes right there at the end, which was at the end of it, is essentially the end of his story. And it was just very beautiful to see, to hear Kevin Feige talk about him the way he did. His wife, Joan, talking about him the way he did, how they met and how they, raised a family. And yeah, it's just a lot of, he was there to meet her friend or something like that. And she was the head, her coworker, and she was the head, what am I trying to say? The head model. And she answered the door. And he said, "Oh wow," and fell in love instantly. It's cool to see things like that and to see how well they worked. And I was telling Jamie, because she was watching it with me, it was cool because in his home movies and when he was playing with his daughter, like his outfits and everything, he wore the same exact outfits and style all the way up until he died. And I was like, man, good for you, because most people change up things, but he wore the exact same stuff, the same kind of glasses, the same mustache and hairstyle and everything. It was a very good film.
That's one thing that you get to see quite a bit of that you may not normally when you watch stuff with Stan Lee in it, is him without the signature mustache.
Right.
He's one of those people that it changes quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. He had like a full-on beard at one point. I was like, not used to that one.
They also had some really cool clips of stuff he did over the years that I hadn't seen. Like at one point, he's sitting there in the middle of a group of kids.
Yes, I was about to bring that part up too. Never seen that before.
Yeah, that was fun. And he looked happier there than he did in the interview segments where he was talking to other adults.
Mm-hmm. And that was another one too. There was it had to be like 80s or 70s, where the head of DC at the time and Stan Lee were like sitting opposite of each other, and there was like an interviewer and then a comic enthusiast, and they were talking about all the comics and stuff. I was like, I didn't know this stuff existed, and it was just very cool to see how Stan Lee talked about his properties and how the head of DC at the time talked about his properties. And like a lot of the stuff which I knew, mostly about, but how Stan Lee wanted to include everybody into comics, like how it's for everybody, not just little kids, and then how he wanted to, he intentionally put harder reading words into the book, so it would feel grown up and people would research it and get smarter and stuff like that. And It's crazy because he was at the very beginning of the film said that, I've been reading ever since I can remember, and I love to read and love to read and love to read, and to see how some of the works that he loved reading be put into Marvel and make those characters that we love and everything. Even Spider-Man, he thought about, decades ago before he made Spider-Man. It was very, very good. For me, I gave this 4 stars. I mean, this was a great documentary. There was not at any point that I wanted to look at my phone because I was bored or want to do any of that kind of stuff, which is how I do a lot of these movies is, if I'm looking at my phone at any part during these movies, then it's not up to par. But like they kept me entertained with the still claymation style that they put on there, and then the comic strips, and then the interviews and everything. I just didn't want to look at my phone.
Yeah, I gave it 4.5. Primarily because the way that they do it, he narrates the whole thing.
Yes, which is cool. Very cool.
It's just a string. They took different interviews over the years where he talked about his life and used that to tell the story. Mm-hmm. And then, again, getting to see some of that stuff that we've never seen before. The conversation with the comic book enthusiast and the head of DC and him, where he basically, he wanted people to have, he said, people need to know that heroes are just like they are.
Mm-hmm.
When they're not being heroes.
Oh, and like one of the
things... They have these problems.
Well, that was like the whole thing with Spider-Man. The publisher said, absolutely not. You're not doing that. That's a dumb character. Because you want to do a high schooler? High schoolers are sidekicks. Or teenagers are sidekicks. And he put at the end of, was it Amazing Suspense or...
Amazing Fantasy.
Amazing Fantasy.
It was the final issue.
And then it made so much money, the publisher said, okay, hey, we're doing that. It's just crazy to me. I mean, it's just crazy how that works and what Spider-Man is now.
I couldn't help but think when they showed the clip with the head of DC, he's sitting there and he's like, "No, this stuff's for kids.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to just keep it simple." And he's basically crapping on a large segment of the comics fan base. And I'm thinking, this is why Marvel and their characters developed so much more over the years.
Evolved and everything.
And DC didn't.
Yep.
And that's why now they have all these different properties that they can pull from, whereas DC, a lot of their minor characters, they got to familiarize us with them first. We already know the Marvel characters.
Because, I mean, it's cool how, Stan Lee wanted to push that. And pushed everything that he believed in, and like it was even one of the quote. I think it might have been what he was telling the kids. No, it was at the end with the commencement speech at the college. He said, do what you believe in and what you believe is right, even if it's hard. He says, do it, and you'll be happy. And it's just, which is like obviously the motto he lived by his entire life. So
the thing that's always gotten me with him. And there was one person in particular. There's no way I'll remember the guy's name. When we went to the Comic-Con where we got to meet Stan Lee, and we sat in the panel, and there was this guy who got up. He had been a foster kid.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been through the foster system, and he got up and he thanked Stan Lee. How was he put it? He said that he always felt alone and he always felt less than and he always felt different until he read Marvel Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And then he saw that was okay to feel different and to be different. The dude had an impact on people.
Right. And it still does. Look, half of our show, even the movies we're talking about, we're obviously doing the MCU rewatch, but, half of the stuff we talk about on this show is from him. So it's nuts. Obviously, I've said it for the past couple of weeks, all the Iron Man stuff, but, you've got Marvel logos all over the place on my shelves, and it's just, it's amazing. the impact and the touch he's had on people's lives. Just writing comic books were supposed to be for kids. He said, He goes, we're making it for everybody. X-Men, they talked about, and how Fantastic Four came to be, and it's very, very cool of how all of it, came to fruition. And I think it's a very good documentary. It's only an hour and a half. I also think everybody should check it out if you're into any of the MCU stuff.
Yeah, and if you're not and you decide to watch it, you will be when you're done watching it. Just because we're not doing full spoilers yet. Let's talk Extraction 2.
Yeah. Now, Chris, I said this, so I just freshly watched it. We're going to do full on spoilers next week.
Right.
But I have no idea how the Warner scene was done. We've talked about it before on the show. 22 minutes, all one Warner. And Chris, you called it in our Nerdwide Reacts we did, and other things we've talked about of what the Warner is. But I just don't understand how. It is probably the most amazing film thing I've seen in a very, very, very long time, because my jaw was on the floor the entire time. There's so many moving pieces, so many different set changes and things like that. Mm-hmm. No idea how you keep all that together at all.
Movie magic.
Yeah. It's just absolutely wonderful.
So it comes in at 2 hours and 3 minutes. Directed by Sam Hargrave. Chris Hemsworth is back as Tyler Rake. That's no spoiler. The characters of Ovi and Nick are back.
Mm-hmm.
Yaz is back.
Did you catch the MCU character I was telling you about that was spoiled by Chris Hemsworth for me? That was only at the beginning and at the end.
You're gonna have to remind me because I'm. Oh yeah.
Which is very fun. Every scene he was in was very, very, very funny.
The character name is Alcott.
Yeah.
Which
he said at the very beginning, cracked me up. He said, "You're a legend, mate." He starts talking about a bunch of different stuff. He says, "But right now, I'm not seeing it." I was like, "Yep, well, dude did just take a bullet through the jugular and still lived." So
yeah, they do like right off the jump, like they should. They do show you how that happened.
Yeah. Still don't believe it, but whatever.
Right, because it was pumping out. I mean, when he hit the water, it was just crimson all around him.
Well, and he sank to the bottom of that river too, but then they kind of retconned it at the beginning of this movie, and he went up to the shore. So
yeah,
but I'm like, that's whatever. I'm fine with it.
I mean, you got to suspend a little bit of disbelief here, I guess. It's got some really good action sequences.
All of the action was just really well done. The villain was believable. Although pretty generic for these kind of movies, but it was still, the whole story of it all was good, and we got a little bit more fleshed out backstory of Tyler Rake as well. Whereas last movie we kind of got a little hints of what happened. With this movie, we saw certain people that we've been wanting to meet and found out, exactly what happened, and we met a lot of Tyler Rake's family in this movie.
We also, with this, get a really good emotional scene in a prison.
Oh, right there at the end.
Yeah, near the end.
Yeah, I thought that was very well done from both actors in that scene. Which we'll talk about more about that next week, but. A lot of good. I give this 4.5 stars. I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. There were, it's a really good action movie, and I do think we're going to get a third one. has not been
Oh
announced
yeah,
yet or anything, but obviously they left a cliffhanger at the end.
yeah, definitely.
But I'm just like, I want more because this is good.
I
They
came in
they
at
know what they're doing.
I came in at 4,
Okay. Maybe
and
typing these out.
there's one there's one character who's a pretty big part of the story that does something just completely stupid that kind of leads to a lot of stuff happening.
Oh yeah.
And there's one point where they're in a tall building, and I'm like, I would have just thrown him out the window.
when when that helicopter comes up and like, oh yeah, you're done. Just
Yeah,
we're just gonna cut you out of this.
human shield.
Right.
I, uh, if you've seen the previews, I'm trying to think. I still got caught off guard by the elevator scene, and
Yes.
it's just like a lighthearted, cute little moment between him and the kid, the little girl,
Mm-hmm. I
who
need to look that up.
I'll say this, that character, considering everything that they go through, and she's just,
Cool, calm, and collected.
yeah,
Yeah.
she, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do a little bit of a time jump, if
Mm.
they do a third one, and have that character back,
I'd be okay with
maybe,
that.
maybe training, or we see her going into the military,
Mm-hmm.
and she's gonna maybe end up following in his footsteps.
Well, she's definitely got that trauma too, because you don't. There were some of those scenes. I mean, I'm like, I don't understand how you don't have anything wrong with you, because there's some. She's been through some things.
Hmm.
I can't find out who that actress is. So
But what made me, let me see if I can find it here. What made me think that they may do something more with her? There's a couple of scenes aside from the elevator.
oh, there was twins,
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Mariami Koviashvili and Marta Koviashvili.
That makes sense.
Huh.
Um, there's a couple of scenes with them where they just cut to a shot of her just very intently looking at him
Mm-hmm.
and watching what he's doing. And that's why I was just out. I could be totally off base, but considering that it's Joe Russo for sure.
Mm-hmm. But both of them
Um,
wrote the story.
yeah, and considering their background with Marvel and how
Community.
nothing is nothing like that is in the film accidentally.
Right.
I wonder if they were kind of slightly teasing that
What if he's
something.
listen? What if he's starting a little Young Avengers in the Extraction world? We got the kid from the last movie, and then the kids from this movie.
This kid needs to be rescued from timeout. Go
Right.
and get him.
Just starts up a
Uh,
little mercenary gang full of these kids.
I love how though through all the stuff he is able to keep like he's got his priorities.
Mm-hmm.
As messed up as things are, like the character we were talking about, just throwing him to the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
He won't.
No.
He keeps trying to
Even after the
put him on the
jabs he
right
threw
path.
at him.
Uh-huh. And
Hmm.
then he tells him at that point what he's done, or starts to,
Right.
and
What did you do? What
yeah,
did you do, mate? Love it. Full on Ozzy.
and again, right there is where I would have just left him to the wolves, but
Yep.
he doesn't. He tries to save him. Um, there's some really cool car stunts in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that they did there. I love the train scene.
that train scene, because we reacted to it. We knew it was gonna be a pretty big set piece, but the ending of the train scene is what I want to bring up, and how that resolved. Like
Yeah,
most times, you see things in movies and TV shows of what they would do. They didn't do that part.
yeah,
They and we can talk about it more, next week. But the way they did it, I was like, oh, that's believable than what you would normally see in a train scene, and it made sense. It was very, very, very cool. Lot of deaths,
yeah.
and the prison, a lot of deaths. I don't understand how people kept coming to him because he killed everybody. So
Yeah, I would have been like, yeah, hey, dude, there's the exit.
yeah, hey buddy, you want to go that way? I'm staying over. Hey, I'm staying back here. You're good because I think he killed everybody in that prison, but like two people.
I'm not gonna mention a particular person here, and I need to go back and watch it. This one particular, you'll know who I'm talking about. This one particular individual, did he rip the guy's hand in
Yes.
half?
So
Okay.
I looked back and tried to see how he did that because he went in, grabbed it, and you heard him twist, and the guy screamed. I was like, okay, like broke his wrist or something. But then it keeps showing because it's a part of the winner, and it keeps showing it, and he's got half his hand just dangling. And I was like, there were some gruesome moments in this, but it was still very good. I don't. I am going to go back and watch that winner several times because that winner, it's just, I'm telling you, it's chef's kiss. I don't know how, if they do a third movie, there's no way to top that unless you do the whole movie as a winner, which is, I mean, they could do it,
It would have
sure,
to be.
but
It would have to be a single location.
right. Because I mean, they went places, which obviously you could use green screens and stuff like that, but I just don't understand how, because that was all very well done and all on different locations and sets. I feel like, and I just don't get it.
Yeah. Um, there is one character, a female character, who gets hit dead in the face with a hammer or pipe. I couldn't
Yeah.
tell which, and apparently just gets a little bit of a bloody lip.
Hmm.
So that part not believable.
Right.
She's fine. She's like, oh,
The
let's go.
the gym scene to me was fun. How they used all the gym equipment at certain points. That was fun.
Yeah, yeah, especially yeah, on
With
the leg machine
yeah,
there.
just all the
Um,
weights. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a scene out on the outside of a tower. It's the same building that the
Hmm.
gym's in. Um, they have that sort of plexiglass or what have you
Hmm.
overhang, and they did some good stuff out there.
That
So
was There was one unbelievable thing on that part, and I'll
just
try to
one.
bring it up next week. Well, I'll say it here. He gets shot in the hand as he's holding on, and I'm like, that would be it. I don't know how your grip's still doing that, but it's
Well, it
Tyler
did
Rake.
start to slip,
Yeah, because I was just like, there's no way. But it
but
was,
I guess they would say adrenaline and his motivation
yeah.
because of what else was going
And
on at the
he's been
time.
chopping wood, so his hand grip's real strong. So that three little spear tattoo on his neck was so badass. I turned to Jamie. I said, "Hey, can I get that?" I said, "You think that would work on me?" And she said, "No, I don't think
You,
work would appreciate that." I was like, "Oh, that looks cool."
you know, as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, it was a tattoo." Because when we did the reaction to the trailer, you were
Hmm.
like, "Is that a smudge or
Right.
is that a tattoo?" And it looks like a smudge
Yeah.
in the trailer, but yeah, it's actually a tattoo.
Which is very badass. Just to get three spears on your neck. So
You should get the Well, you should get a temporary tattoo of that and see how they react at work.
yeah, just to see. Well, I wear collared shirts, so I mean it'd be like right here. You still see like some of the tips of the spears. Which, I don't see a lot of people throughout work anyway, so it's just kind of sad. Actually, I'm sitting thinking about it. But anyways, Extraction 2, great movie.
Gave it, yeah, I gave it four. You said four and a half,
Yep.
right? All right. So we also watched Iron Man 2. I'm gonna do what I normally do here. We'll run down the synopsis from Wikipedia. Wikipedia. I don't know why I said
Wiki.
Winky Winky. Came out April 26th, 2010 at the El Capitan Theater. May 7th was its general distribution. Apparently my internet is slow as hell. Come on, open up the damn page. What if I click the direct link to the plot?
Do the plot, do the plot.
There we go.
Plot.
Okay. Now I'm gonna say this right off before we get into this. I have mixed feelings about Whiplash in this movie, but whatever. So here's the plot. In Russia, the media covers Tony Stark's disclosure of his identity as Iron Man, which we got to see at the end of the first movie. Ivan Vanko, whose father, Anton Vanko, a former Stark Industries employee, has just died, sees this and begins building a miniature arc reactor similar to Stark. 6 months later, Stark has become a media superstar and resists pressure to turn over his armored suits to the government. No, they don't get that. To continue the legacy of his father, Howard, he reinstitutes the Stark Expo in New York City's Flushing Meadows Corona Park. Stark learns that the palladium core in the arc reactor that keeps him alive and powers the armor is slowly poisoning him, and he cannot find a substitute. Growing increasingly reckless and despondent about his impending death, choosing not to tell anyone about his condition. Stark appoints his assistant, Pepper Potts, as CEO of Stark Industries and hires Stark employee Natalie Rushman to replace her as his assistant. Wonder who she's going to be.
I don't think anything happens after her.
Yeah. Stark competes in the Monaco Historic Grand Prix, where he's attacked in the middle of the race by Vanko, who wields electrified whips powered by his arc reactor. Stark dons his armor and defeats Vanko, but the suit is severely damaged. Vanko explains he intended to prove to the world that Iron Man is not invincible. Impressed by Vanko's performance, Stark's rival Justin Hammer fakes Vanko's death while breaking him out of prison and asks him to build a line of armored suits to upstage Stark, though Vanko decides unmanned drones are a better idea.
Drones better. I can't do Russian accents. I can't.
During what he believes is his final birthday party, Stark gets drunk while wearing the Iron Man suit. Not the best idea.
No.
Disgusted, Stark's best friend, U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes, now no longer played by Terrence Howard, dons Stark's prototype armor and tries to restrain him. The fight ends in a stalemate, and Rhodes confiscates the armor for the U.S. Air Force. Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., approaches Stark, revealing Rushman is Agent Natasha Romanoff, and Howard Stark was the S.H.I.E.L.D. founder whom Fury knew personally. Fury explains Vanko's father and Stark invented the arc reactor together, but when Anton tried to sell it, Stark had him deported. The Soviets sent Anton to the Gulag. Fury gives Stark some of his father's old material. In a diorama of the 1974 Stark Expo, Stark finds a diagram of the atomic structure of a new element. With the aid of his AI, Jarvis, Stark determines it can replace his arc reactor's current palladium core and successfully synthesizes it. When he learns Vanko is still alive, he goes to Hammer's Expo. As Hammer unveils Vanko's armored drones, led by Rhodes in a heavily weaponized version of the prototype armor dubbed War Machine.
Such a cool name.
Just as Stark arrives to warn Rhodes, Vanko takes remote control of all the drones and Rhodes' armor and attacks Stark. Hammer's arrested for breaking Vanko out of prison, while Romanoff and Stark's bodyguard Happy Hogan go after Vanko at Hammer's factory. Vanko escapes, but Romanoff returns control of Rhodes' armor to him. Together, Stark and Rhodes defeat Vanko and his drones. Vanko commits suicide by blowing up his suit, along with the defeated drones. At a debriefing, Fury informs Stark that because of his difficult personality, S.H.I.E.L.D. intends to use him only as a consultant. Stark and Rhodes receive medals for their heroism, and in a post-credits scene, S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Phil Coulson reports the discovery of a large hammer at the bottom of a crater in a desert in New Mexico.
Which they teased the whole movie. They were talking about. I always love seeing Coulson in these movies.
Yeah, it's fun.
Um, love it. I mean, I give this 4.5 stars. I like this one better than the third one. I know a lot of people do not like this second one personally, but I'm a huge Iron Man geek, and there's so much comic lore to it. With Vanko and seeing things now, like the Senator being a part of Hydra, and just a lot of stuff we didn't know at the time until multiple years later. I just really enjoyed this one. It's a fun one, and seeing Rhodey suit up for the first time, as with Don Cheadle is, I thought it was just great.
Right. Yeah. It's obviously, you got Cheadle and Scarlett Johansson,
Mm-hmm.
who are sort of the big newcomers at this point. Yeah, I don't. There's stuff that Mickey Rourke has done
Mm-hmm.
that I've liked, and I've liked him in. I've never been sure about this.
Well, and they call him a physicist in this movie too, and I'm like, are we really supposed to believe this dude? Yes, he spent 15 years in prison, but that this dude is a physicist? Because, like, I mean, I didn't buy that part of it, but I enjoyed him as a villain.
Yeah, he was good as a villain. Um, I came in on this one at 4 stars. It's enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I like it better than the third one.
God, I can't. We're gonna rip that one a
Um,
new one. I can't freaking wait.
um, but yeah, and one of the things that is interesting about going back and watching this one, because we've we've gotten so used to over the years as we watch it seeing certain looks on certain
Mm-hmm.
characters, and Scarlett Johansson definitely has a different look here.
Yes.
The real curly hair and all
Mm-hmm.
that.
The
So
more comic
uh,
accurate
yeah,
Black Widow.
yeah, and then they kind of went away from that, thankfully,
Yeah.
because it just doesn't really.
It doesn't work. Like, I mean, it worked
Oh,
for this film, but like going forward, it's like, nah, it's a little.
right.
But I mean, they make it work. But I've got a lot of
It's
Easter
al-
eggs here. Well, not a lot. This
it's
is
always
good.
it's always fun too to have Sam Jackson in the film.
Mm-hmm.
He's just one of my favorite actors.
Well, good. We're about to get a lot of him, so I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear you say that.
yeah.
Got quite a bit of Easter eggs, not as many as the first Iron Man, because Iron Man set up a whole lot. But the first one I got here, we're going to complex.com for these. The first one is identical framing. The filmmakers deliberately, oops, sorry, my phone just fell. Framed Ivan in the same pose as Tony from the first movie when he was building the first Iron Man suit in the cave. It parallels their experiences at this point in their lives. Both men are creating something brilliant out of scraps. Some of these are dumb. The Ironettes from the very first part of it. Several of the Ironettes dancing girls on stage at the Stark Expo are members of the Los Angeles Chargers cheerleaders. So, pretty cool little thing there. There's a Larry Ellison cameo. The co-founder of the Oracle Corporation has a cameo during the backstage scene at the Stark Expo. Seth Green is also there as well, and of course that's when we get the Stan Lee cameo as well. They call him, he mistakes him for Larry King. And then, of course, like I said earlier, the Hail Hydra here with learning Captain America the Winter Soldier, that Senator Stern is secretly a member of Hydra, a covert group that creates international conflicts and its quest for global domination, which makes sense, with his character this whole entire film. Moving on, when Rhodey is called as a witness for the Senate hearing, he whispers to Tony, "Yes, it's me. I'm here. So get over it. Let's move on." Obviously, talking about him being the new actor for Rhodey, which is pretty cool. Director cameo. We see Christine Everhart from Vanity Fair again. Elon Musk, which did not age well, might I add.
No.
DJ AM, the DJ at Tony's birthday party is DJ AM, who died of a drug overdose several months after filming his role. The movie is also dedicated to his memory. The shield, we can see Captain America's signature shield at Tony's workshop. Tony uses it for a pretty anticlimactic purpose, which I don't think that was supposed to be his shield, because his shield froze with him on the plane.
Okay.
And Captain America, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where it froze. I don't think I remember that, because he,
Um,
No, I don't know. Actually, it fell.
It fell.
It hit. It didn't freeze with him. But I don't think. To me, I don't think this is his shield.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Or was it in the
It
plane with
did.
him?
No, it did freeze with him because that's what they see through the ice.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. The red, white, and
Yeah.
blue. So I don't think this is him working on the shield. I think this is him trying to make a new one.
Yeah.
Or his father was trying to make a new one and just wasn't able to. Wakanda Forever. At the end of the movie, we can see a map behind Nick Fury of various places of interest for S.H.I.E.L.D. One of them is situated in Africa, which is supposed to be Wakanda, which we think is home of Black Panther, and of course the end with the hammer for with Thor. So
Yeah, taking it back to the shield too, that makes sense because, of course, in Captain America, Howard Stark says that all the vibranium that they had available went into the making of the shield.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, he would be trying to replicate
trying to make a stronger shield that would, yeah. So
to take the place of the one lost.
That's how I take it. A lot of people said, "Oh, it's Captain
Yeah.
America's shield." I'm like, no, it's because he didn't. Nah, I don't think that's what that was. So, but I want to say before we move on to some of our news and stuff for the movies that I got sent this. So Neil Kirby, Jack Kirby's son, has released a statement this afternoon of about the Stan Lee documentary. So it's a little lengthy, but I'm gonna read through it because I feel like it's what we talked about earlier regarding all this. He released this late last night. Looks like the 13th century Islamic poet scholar Rami said, "The ego is a veil between humans and gods." In the Disney Plus documentary bio of Stan Lee, the veil is lifted. Presented in the first person with Lee's voice providing a running narrative, it is Stan Lee's greatest tribute to himself. The literary expression of ego is the personal pronoun I. Any decent English or journalism teacher would admonish their students not to overuse it. So the challenge is extended to anyone who wishes to count the number of I's during the 86-minute running time of Stan Lee. This guy, like, a lot of people obviously having issues with this because this dude's a jackass, it sounds like. I understand that as a documentary about Stan Lee, he put in quotations, most of the narrative is in his voice, literally and figuratively. It's not any big secret there's always been controversy over the parts that were played in the creation and success of Marvel's characters. Stan Lee had the fortunate circumstance to have access to the corporate megaphone and media, and he uses these to create his own mythos as the creation of the Marvel character pantheon. He made himself the voice of Marvel. So for several decades, he was the only man standing, and blessed with the long life that last man standing. My father died in 94. It should also be noted it is generally accepted that Stan Lee had a limited knowledge of history, mythology, or science. On the other hand, my father's knowledge of these subjects, to which I and many others can personally attest, was extensive. Einstein summed it up better. More the knowledge, lesser the ego. Lesser the knowledge, more the ego. I have a problem with this already as I'm reading this. You're attacking a dead dude. Like, this stuff should have been... Anyways, if you were to look at a list and timeline of Marvel's characters from 1960 through 1966, the period in which the vast majority of Marvel's characters were created during Lee's tenure, you'll see Lee's name as co-creator on every character, with the exception of Silver Surfer, solely created by my father, which they mention in the film. Are we to assume Lee had a hand in creating every Marvel character? Are we to assume that it was never the other co-creator that walked into Lee's office and said, "Stan, I have a great idea for a character"? According to Lee, it was always his idea. Lee spends a fair amount of time talking about how and why he created the Fantastic Four, with only one fleeting reference to my father. Indeed, most comic historians recognize that my father based the Fantastic Four on a 1957 comic he created from DC, Challengers of the Unknown, even naming Ben Grimm the Thing after his father Benjamin and Sue Storm after my older sister Susan. Though the conflict between Lee and my father concerning creator credit gets glanced over with little mention, there's more attention paid to the strife between Lee and Steve Ditko, with Lee's voice proclaiming it was my idea, therefore I created the character. Ditko's rebuttal being that his art and storyline is what brought life to Spider-Man. I'm going to skim through some of this because it's just doesn't relate. He's trying to say he's smarter and stuff.
While you're skimming, first off, Stan Lee pointed out in a few interviews that his brain was always thinking about new characters.
Right.
And as he became the publisher and wasn't actively writing anymore, he had more time to formulate ideas for characters.
The last paragraph I'll read here, a lot of it was just him fluffing up how much smarter he is. Like it just seems like this is inflating his own dude's ego. Like Neil, you're just trying to get your name out in the world. My father retired from comic books in early 1980s and of course passed away in 1994. Lee had over 35 years of uncontested publicity. That was all in italicized, by the way. Much naturally with the backing and blessing of Marvel as the boosted the Marvel brand as a side effects of boosting himself. Dude, come on. The decades of Lee's self-promotion culminated with his cameo appearances in over 35 Marvel films, starting with X-Men in 2000, thus cementing his status as the creator of all things Marvel to an otherwise unknowing movie audience of millions unfamiliar with the true history of the comics. My father's first screen credit didn't appear until the closing crawl at the end of the film adaptation of Iron Man 2008, after Stan Lee, Don Heck, and Larry Lieber. The battle for creators' rights has been around since the first inscribed Babylonian tablet. It's way past time to at least get this one chapter of literary art history right. Nuff said, Neil Kirby. And then it goes in and put it in parentheses, Jack Kirby's son. Dude, come on.
First of all, the whole premise that kicks this thing off. Stan Lee didn't put this documentary together.
No. It says it's the picture of Homelander and Stargirl.
Oh.
It says, I'm all for Kirby getting the credit he deserves, but this sounds like a desperate attempt at getting royalty checks. Which is exactly how it reads to me. So
yeah,
whatever.
Stan Lee didn't put the documentary together. This is not an ego trip on his part.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of what seems like at least a dozen different interviews, if not more, that he did over the years, in which he was being asked questions, like the interviewers staring at him going, what about when you created this character? So of course he's going to answer, well, when I came up with the idea for this. Because he came up with a lot of the ideas, like we said earlier, the general concept of the character.
Right.
Yeah, the artist still had to define what it looked like, but there's also a couple of times in there where he points out that either himself or another publisher said, no, try again on that.
Yeah.
In fact, he mentions Jack Kirby. His attempt at Spider-Man didn't work.
Mm-hmm. And he went to Ditko.
He went to Ditko, and because of Ditko's art style, and it worked better for Spider-Man. So he played an important part in the process. Had Kirby been allowed to continue on Spider-Man, maybe it's not successful.
Right.
Because people don't like the way the character looks.
Just feel like this dude's trying to get his flowers when
it is.
There aren't any flowers to be gained from this moment. So
no, not at all. He just needs to, unless he's gonna, show his work, so to speak. He just probably needs to close his mouth and be quiet at this point. What stopped him from saying this a few years ago when Stan Lee was still alive?
Right, or any time at all. So
next week, our movie review will be The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton.
It's been a while since I've seen this movie.
Yeah, it's now on Disney Plus as of this week. If you choose to watch along and want to do it there, if you don't own a physical copy. I'm also looking forward to getting to Iron Man 3. We've talked about, we alluded earlier to the discussion that'll be had around that. Make sure you watch with us on that one, because there's a small role, little cameo, for someone whose work we've covered here a few times. Jenna Ortega plays the president's daughter.
I keep forgetting that.
So, yeah. Keep your eyes out for that when it comes time to watch Iron Man 3. On to the news. Captain America Brave New World, set to come out May 3rd, 2024. So we got just under a year. Yeah. That's not bad. We know we're going to get the Marvels later this year. This is a result of them slowing things down.
Yes.
Not feeding us a new movie every 2 months with a new Disney Plus series in between the movies.
Which is good and bad, but I'm okay with it.
from a show perspective, what we do talking about it, it was great to have all that content.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's nice to be able to breathe a little.
Right.
James Gunn has confirmed Superman Legacy as the first DCU movie, and Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, which we talked about before the show. Kind of means the events of this film aren't going to matter.
Right.
I mean, it matters in the sense that it's the Blue Beetle origin, but they're not really going to
like branded as DCU.
Right.
So.
The Flash director, Andy Muschietti, is confirmed to be directing Batman, the Brave and the Bold, which...
So people are excited about this, like BD from comicbook.com. He's really excited about this. He said, because you have to understand that Andy inherited a mess of a film and was able to turn it into The Flash and able to turn it into what it is now. And they said, give him a film which he can direct and do and take control over. It's going to be great. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
I think it'll be good. I don't have any issues with him directing it.
Mm-mm.
What caught my attention is seeing him kind of in the same group of news items. James Gunn chose, which granted, The Brave and the Bold is a Batman property, but he chose to go with this property and this name, knowing that there was a Captain America Brave New World going on over it.
Well, Brave New World is new because it was Captain America something.
But he still knew before he settled on, hey, let's do the Brave and the Bold storyline.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe hoping for a little confusion and cross-promotion without intent to cross-promote. I don't know. The Flash numbers are in for the opening weekend. Now, this is from Deadline. And if it ever loads, it's Anthony D'Alessandro.
Which we hadn't heard from in quite a bit. We used to read his name a lot.
Yeah. The Flash loses speed with $60 million 3-day opening. Here's why. So I'm just going to read through some of this here. There are a lot of lessons to be learned this weekend, but chief among them is what it's like for a major motion picture studio to open a movie with largely a number of its cast, primarily its main star, not available to do press. That's the big looming question, which has been on everyone's minds in the wake of Ezra Miller's tabloid-laden 2020 to 2022 in regards to Warner Brothers DC's $200 million The Flash, which isn't looking good, with a 3-day around $60 million, off from the 70 to 75 the studio was expecting. The studio is still expecting the Juneteenth holiday to deliver and get the film to $70 million over 4 days at 4,234 theaters. If that's the case, that's the first time the federal holiday, which has not proven itself to be a big movie-going day yet, has yielded a daily gross for a movie north of $10 million. I'm going to stop real briefly here and say that, I don't see a lot of people celebrating Juneteenth by going to see The Flash. But
no, and it's one of those things, too. Sure, it's a national holiday, but not a lot of companies and job places recognize it yet, which is weird to me. I mean,
we don't yet.
Yeah.
They haven't added it yet.
We don't either.
Nope.
Hospitals don't really acknowledge much anyways, but
right. We expect they kind of will next year.
Yeah.
They're kind of working it in, I guess. Last year, Universal's Jurassic World Dominion made only $8.6 million on the Juneteenth Monday holiday. The pick did $24.5 million yesterday, which includes Thursday previews. Other studios see these figures lower. Given the $9.7 million previews last night, at a glance, it looked like Flash had the potential to over-deliver and beat its weekend estimates, and that's looking less likely now. Should the movie have gone straight to Warner's streaming service, Max? Absolutely not. They need to make as much money as they can, and that's through Windows. To that, I would say, well, if they're trying to make as much money as possible, they should have released the Batwoman movie. But,
correct. It's some form. Should I get the steelbook for this? I mean, I've got all the other
I mean, I guess if you want to use it for target practice, if you got a BB gun or
It's on
something.
sale, and I'm like, I mean, it's the normal sale. I saw it on. I've got it saved in my phone to potentially
Is
buy
it
it.
is it marked down already?
No. It's like it's on. It's
Oh,
already up for pre-order and
I was
stuff like
like,
that.
that's a bad sign.
I mean, it looks cool.
It
Yeah,
hasn't
it's its
even.
normal price, but I
It
mean,
hasn't even.
it looks cool.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
wish it was Grant Gustin on the artwork
yeah,
and not
but
Evan
you
Cohen.
know, but to be fair, the
Uh,
flashes are in the back of
yeah,
Marco Keaton, so they're letting you know who's. I don't know. I might do it just because I'm a big steelbook sucker for all these stupid movies.
yeah.
It could be on heavily discounted 2 years from now anyway, so who knows?
Yeah, that's true. There's not a whole lot. They do kind of touch on how with the SAG after strike authorization in place, should talks go sideways, actors are not permitted to do press in those situations. Um, San Diego Comic Con's in check with the unavailability of TV series creators. Um, Warner didn't lean on Miller for the Flash's press tour, which was a very good decision.
Yes, very good call.
Uh, yeah, so a lot of this is tied to just the amount of press done, the strike going on. Um, yeah, so there's not a whole lot left to say. Um, he does note near the end of the article here that, well, not near the end, kind of in the middle. Um, Disney's Pixar's Elemental was neither fire nor glamorous ice, with an estimated $30 million 3-day after a Friday around 11.8. 4-day could be 33 million at just over 4,000 theaters. So,
Rough weekend for movies.
yeah, I mean, and I still think though that if with the Flash being a comic property, if it was something that people wanted to see, they would have gone out and seen it.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think it would have cost them more money, but had they taken the time to reshoot with someone else in the role, I think they possibly do a bigger
This
box office.
film's been in production and done with production for a very long time.
Yeah,
So, but it is what it is at this point.
true. No new releases this week,
Mm-mm.
which brings us to games where there's apparently nothing.
I
except
don't have anything. Have you been playing anything really?
nothing outside of my normal stuff, no.
I'm honestly getting close to being ready. Just kind of cut the games out of the docket and just being a TV and movie
Do
coverage.
TV
Kinda.
and movie, and then if there is something
Yeah, something we want to
game-wise,
talk about. We can. Yeah,
we're,
there'll be a decision going down the road we gotta talk about. Because I really don't
we're
have
just
anything.
yeah. Yeah, they're just kind of slacking there, huh?
Yeah, I've been playing the Final Fantasy demo, which led to me pre-ordering Final Fantasy 16 because it's really a phenomenal game. And if you've got a PlayStation 5, you need to buy this one because it's just chef's kiss. And the demo, try the demo out first. It's free, and it covers like the first 2 hours of the game, and your progress carries over. It's beautiful. Like it's absolutely wonderful. It's rated M, so it's the first one rated this way, but it's a lot of fun.
Mm.
Releases this week: Crash Team Rumble, which is like a MOBA tile Crash Bandicoot game, comes out on everything but the Switch on June 20th, and then Final Fantasy 16 for PlayStation 5 on the 22nd. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been your Superman and Lois Gotham Knight renewal and cancellation week. We finally get to talk about it. Extraction 2 finally came out. And as you can tell, we loved it. And we were going to talk full-on spoilers next week about it. So make sure you've watched it and get caught up on it. Let's take the conversation down to the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you thought of the Stanley documentary, any of these movies we talked about, or shows. Let us know if you're excited that Superman and Lois is coming back. Let us know who you hate that's being cut from the show, Or if you're one of these Gotham Knights nerds that really enjoyed this show, that you hate that's been canceled, let us know in the comments as well. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We really hope you enjoy this episode. Don't forget to share it on all your favorite social media platforms. And don't forget to rate and review this podcast on all your favorite podcasting services. On social media, you can follow the Nerdwide account at nerd_wide on Twitter. You can follow me personally at Ty_Haynes. And you can follow Chris at MavTN7. On Facebook, go to facebook.com. In that little search bar, search Nerdwide Podcast, nerdwide.com, or just Nerdwide. We're always the first thing that pop up there. And that's where you could, if you follow us at either one of the social media accounts, that's where we relate to you the latest information. If we have to cancel a show or any of that kind of stuff, that is the place you'll find out where it happens. As always, this has been this week's episode of the Nerdwide Podcast, and we cannot wait to talk to you about the Incredible Hulk next week.
Later, guys.